Welcome at the Innovation Academy. My name is Paul and I'm a specialist in research and education. I help all kinds of organizations, including universities, that are dealing with research and education. I write books, I give presentations, I help PhD students, and I'm doing that in the Netherlands where I live, but also abroad. This presentation is about choosing your research question. A good choice saves time, money and frustration. To explain this to you, the presentation is split up in two parts. In the first part, I'm going to deal with the question how to choose your rationale, the reason for your research. In the second part, I'm going to explain to you how to choose your final research question. To explain what is important when you choose your rationale, I've collected some examples. And these are real-life examples. They come from students, professional researchers. First, I'm going to present an example. Then I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of this example. And of course, multiple examples will be presented and discussed. Let's take a look at the first example. In this example, the researcher has formulated as a rationale, as a reason to start his research, the question, what causes ADHD? What makes that adults, children feel restless and that they find it hard to concentrate? And the researcher has formulated three sub-questions. These questions are: how many people suffer from ADHD? What medicines and therapies are applied to fight ADHD? And how successful are these therapies and medicines? The question is, why isn't it very adequate to formulate your rationale in this way? The first reason is that you are supposed to be an expert. You are supposed to know everything about the topic being researched. By formulating these questions, you show the reader that you're not an expert, that you have to look up what every expert already knows. So, it doesn't make a very good impression. The second reason is that the research deals with a construct. ADHD is a construct. You cannot see it, you cannot feel it, you cannot taste it, you cannot smell it. So, how to do research on something that's not empirical? In the empirical-analytical tradition, they found a solution. They look for indications. They say, look, if you find it hard to sit still, or maybe you find it hard to concentrate, we say that you suffer from ADHD. And that's remarkable because we don't even know if ADHD exists. We just say to you that you have it. And about 20 years ago, the members of the American Psychological Association, they came together and they said, well, let's change the criteria. Let's change the way we establish if someone has ADHD. And suddenly, a lot more people got ADHD. And the members of the American Psychological Association earned a lot more money by changing these criteria, because all these extra people suffering from ADHD. The same is happening at our schools. The question is, when are you a good student? And the school, the government, they decide when you are a good student. And most of the times it has something like, well, if you are able to reproduce what we tell you, and you do what we tell you, then you are a good student. And they don't measure if someone is very good in making up stories. And they don't measure if someone can come up with innovative solutions. And they don't measure if someone has body language. So, the way it is defined depends on the people who have the power. The psychologists have the power to define ADHD. The people who control the schools have the power to define when you are a good student. And this is done in the empirical-analytical way. In a more action-based type of research, this is not done. They say, you have to talk to the people being researched to define ADHD. You have to talk to the people being researched to define when someone is a good student. So the way someone is looking at your research depends on the way he has been educated. As he has been educated in the empirical analytical tradition, he will say to you, remember, to do this research, you need a validated test to measure ADHD. Or to do this research, you need a validated test to find out if someone is a good student. And if someone has been trained in the action-based type of research, he will say to you, remember, you have to talk to the people being researched to define if someone is a good student. And you have to talk to them to find out if people is suffering from ADHD. The people being researched define these constructs. Up to now we have discussed two issues. The first issue was about the difference between a search and a research question. And the second issue was about how to measure a construct. The question comes forward, do we have a solution? Well, the solution for the first issue is quite easy. Dive into the literature. Talk to experts. Try to find out if there are still things we don't know, if there are still things we have doubts about. And if you found it, you have a research question. The answer on the second issue is a little bit more complicated. It depends on the people who are judging your research. If these people have been trained in an empirical analytical tradition, they might say to you, you have to use a so-called validated instrument. An instrument that has been developed by the peers, by the other psychologists or by the other psychiatrists or by the other researchers who are doing research about schools. And if this person or these persons have been trained in action research, they might say to you, you cannot use a validated instrument. You have to talk to the people being researched. So the way people judge your research depends on the way they have been trained. So try to find someone like me who has been trained on both points of view. Let's take a look at the second example. What makes the people feel involved with the work? That they want to achieve good results, that they use all their knowledge, creativity and skills to achieve this, and that they are motivated. Well, this rationale doesn't contain one question, it contains many questions. And every question means you have to do an extra research. As my old professor used to say, it's difficult enough to find the answer on one question, so only formulate one question. The second issue in this example has to do with the previous example, because this rationale contains many constructs. Again, you have to choose between the empirical analytical tradition and action research, but we've already discussed that. What is the solution? Well, the solution is quite easy. Formulate one question and try to find out if the one who has to judge research, he wants you to work from an empirical analytical point of view or from an action research point of view, or maybe he lets you make your own choice. Let's take a look at the third rationale. How to increase the number of members of a political party. This rationale has nothing to do with the why question. The research doesn't try to explain why something is happening. And that's the main goal of research, trying to explain why things are happening. So researchers from the empirical analytical tradition, but also the researchers that want you to do action research, won't accept this rationale. The researchers from the empirical analytical tradition will probably say, take a theory, make a prediction, try to find out if it is true. The theory might be that if a political party defends the interests of people, people will vote on it. And in this case, you might come to the conclusion that the political party especially supports the interests of black people, so you predict that the black people will vote on this party. This is called direct testing. You have this theory and then you deduce a prediction from it and then you try to find out if it is true. People who defend action research won't accept it. They will say to you, no, 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 direct testing isn't good enough. What you have to do is indirect testing. If the theory is that people support the political parties that defend their interest, then what you could do is make clear to the world that this party also defends the interests of white people. And if you make this clear to the white people, then more and more people, white people, should vote on this political party. And in this way you can indirectly test if this theory is true. What is the solution? The solution is to formulate a rationale that deals with cause and effect. And if someone helps you, guides you, has to judge you from the empirical-analytical tradition, then make clear that you will take this theory, that you will deduce a prediction, and that you're going to test this prediction, that you're going to do a direct testing. And if someone is helping you, guiding you, judging you from the action research tradition, then make clear that you will take a theory, but that you are going to use it as a heuristic tool, that you're going to use it as an instrument to come up with solutions, and that you're going to test these solutions. Let's take a look at example number 4. What is the opinion of the inhabitants of New York about going to a theme park? In this research, the researcher tries to find out what's the opinion of the people of New York. So it is a descriptive research, but most universities want you to show that you are able to think about cause and effect, that you are able to say these are possible causes, but I believe this is the most likely cause because. So from this point of view you might reconsider this rationale and turn it into a rationale about cause and effect. A second issue with this rationale is that it presupposes that you have a lot of knowledge about how to draw a random sample, knowledge about how to calculate reliability statistics, and that you have the time and money to do the research, because this type of research costs a lot of time and money. So also from this point of view you might reconsider this rationale. What is the solution for those two issues? The solution for the first issue is to formulate a rationale that has to do with cause and effect, and to put the how-to question in your goal. For example, the rationale of this research is to find out why people visit a theme park. It has the goal to find ways to attract more visitors. The solution for the second issue is that you have to think about the time and money you have, that you think about your statistical skills. And if you believe that you don't have the time and money, or that you are convinced that you don't have the statistical skills, then it's wise to reformulate your rationale in something that is feasible. For example, what is the opinion of the 100 children of school X about going to a theme park? Example number 5. What are the effects of an economic crisis? This rationale is a so-called undirected question. It doesn't give direction to the information you need. It doesn't make clear if you need information about the psychological consequences. Do you need information about the economical consequences? Do you need information about the social consequences? So it is a research without any end. You have to find all the consequences of an economic crisis. crisis. So this research is a continuing story. The solution is to reformulate this rationale into a more directed question. A question that points in the direction of the information you need. For example, what is the effect of an economic crisis on the number of suicides? Or what's the effect of an economic crisis on the money people spend for their daily shoppings? When you do this, then you know a lot better what information you need to do your research, and that makes it much more feasible to do the research. Let's take a look at rationale number 6. How big is the influence from religion on having children? And the goal of this research is birth control. This rationale is a so-called theoretical prejudice. The researcher has formulated as a starting question, as a first question, what is the influence of religion on having children? But maybe other factors are important too, and probably other factors are important too. The solution is to show the reader that you have an open mind, that you start with a question like, what factors contribute to, in this case, the number of children people have? And then you discuss the literature, what's already known about this topic. And maybe at the end you'll come to the conclusion that religion is an important factor, that it's worthwhile to do research about religion. But maybe you'll come to the conclusion that another factor is more important and you have to do research about this other factor. Rationale number 7. Why are people buying a house in Madrid? And the goal of this research is to sell more houses in Madrid. This rationale is narrowed down to the city of Madrid, and that might make it quite difficult to find good scientific information, to find good scientific literature, because you need literature about Madrid. So it might be wise to formulate a rationale from a broader perspective, from a broader point of view. That makes it easier to find literature. What is the solution? Well, the solution is to split the rationale into the why part and into the apply part. The why part, you use it to formulate your rationale, and the apply part, you use it to formulate the goal of research. In this case, the rationale would be something like, what causes that people buy a house? And the apply part would be something like, if we have the answer on this question, can we apply it on the city of Madrid to make sure that we sell more houses? I've tried to explain the pros and cons of the way you formulate your rationale, the starting question in your research. In the next video, I'll try to explain the pros and cons of your final research question. Till next time, bye!